blah blah, blah blah blah.
What is true militarily is true economically. Their rate of increase is greater. It's certainly true scientifically. And in the image they give to the world of a country on the make, on the move.
On the make refers to someone or an organization trying to gain power or make a lot of money. So if you have a company on the make, it means that they want to become powerful. A person on the make, same idea. And also included in there is the idea that they might do what they feel is necessary, even if it compromises moral values.
You can replace, there's another expression, someone is going places, right?
You can also say that, right.
So that means that a person has a strong potential and moving fast upward in
right. And also
professional and social context.
Exactly. And also is the idea that someone might be fast and loose, which means that they tend to do things that are good for them, but not necessarily so good for everyone else.
Blah blah, blah blah blah.
His whole emphasis in his campaign, and I've read all of his speeches, has been that our power is the highest, our prestige is the highest, we've never had it so good, this administration's influence at the United Nations, and all the rest, that we're at the ascendancy. There is no note of urgency in the messages which Mr. Nixon has been giving the last 2 months.
At ascendancy, ascend means to go up. In this case, ascendancy means to reach a position of power and dominance. So you can say that the Roman Empire was at its ascendancy roughly around the year 200, or you could say the United States is at ascendancy now, or the British Empire reached its ascendancy right before the First World War.
So it can mean either the peak of development, or it can mean just in the process of ascending, right?
It can mean in the process of ascending, but it also means to reach a position of power. So right now you can say China is, I'm not sure if you could say China is at ascendancy because they're not more powerful than the United States. But you could say China is reaching for ascendancy, which would mean that they want to be the most dominant country on the world.
Blah blah, blah blah blah.
When we go to meet with the communists, however, and Mr. Khrushchev, who has shown himself to be so volatile, so bellicose, belligerent, I would like to feel that we're moving in a definite direction with some understanding in advance.
Bellicose and belligerent both refer to war. Belly means war. Bellicose refers to talk about war, which usually precedes the actual war, where the leaders of one country will threaten another country and more or less signal that they're going to go to war. Belligerent means to actually undertake war, to actually do the war that you said you were going to do. So in the case of the Iraq War, there was a lot of talk before the war about the war. So by the time that it actually happened, people realized that was going to happen. Or,
and also,
go ahead.
You mentioned bell means war. Also, there is a word antebellum. For example, antebellum South, and it means ante means before, bellum war, so before Civil War.
Exactly. Antebellum means before the Civil War. And you can also use that to refer to other countries too. You could talk about antebellum Europe before the Second World War, if you want to.
Blah blah, blah blah blah.
And in my judgment, a major effort should be made in 1961 to make sure that there's no subterfuge, that everyone has the right to vote.
Subterfuge is a form of deceit. designed to fool the other side. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is lying, but it means that they're presenting the information in a somewhat of a false way. For example, they might not be including important information that undermines their position or what the other side is. It can also mean they don't believe their own position, and so they're using deceit to promote what they want the other side to do.
So you can say that the government used subterfuge to lessen the effect of war when they coined new terminology. For example, they would replace casualties with like civil casualties. They would refer to civil casualties as collateral damage because it doesn't sound as bad and as destructive, right? So you can say
that's
they
fair
use
enough.
subterfuge.
That's fair enough. The use of euphemisms, you can call that subterfuge. But generally, subterfuge is used when someone is trying to win a situation against another person. For example, one football team might try to make the other football team think that their quarterback is injured when he really is not injured. That would be an example of subterfuge. So they're trying to get the other side to create a false strategy they want to get the other side to create mistakes in their strategy. Or they could use subterfuge in their signals. They could try to make the other side think they're doing one thing, but they're really doing another. So that's generally how subterfuge is used. And
when one of the boxers pretends that he's out of
condition,
out of gas, and is about to be knocked, to fall down, and the opponent becomes careless and too aggressive, and then gets knocked down.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Or like we said, companies might put out negative information about themselves in order to convince their competitors to sort of get lazy.
Yeah.
And usually subterfuge is not quite at the level of ruse. A ruse would be a completely false story. Subterfuge is not quite as severe as that. Usually there's some truth to it, but the issue is more the focus.
That's all for today. Tom Taylor is an ESL tutor. He teaches English in the United States and outside, all over the world, using Skype. He can be reached at his website, which is
ESL-fullsteamahead.com.
Click on this link and check out his website and email with questions. Thank you, Tom, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.